Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Funhouse. Today we are fixing a hole in the wall, and it's just about the right size to do it as what we refer to as a blowout patch. Now I already started cutting here, as is tradition. I start work and then realize this could be a good video, and then I stop and start making a video. But what I'm doing now is I'm going to make the hole a square, because it's easier to patch that way. You can also make it round and use a series of hole saws. I'll cover that in another video. But here's how to do it with some cheap stuff that you probably already have laying around. So you make that squared off, and you take a little chunk of sheetrock, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a square that's about approximately 4 inches bigger than this height-wise, and 4 inches wider than this. And you'll see why in a minute. I find this to be the easiest way to do this. Now I'll connect this mark. It doesn't have to be perfect. To this mark. And I'll cut that out. Easiest way to do that, let's aim you guys down. Is cut all the way across. Snap it. Cut it. Get rid of the excess. And now I'll cut all the way across on here. Snap it. Cut it. And now I'm working with a manageable piece. So here's where it gets a little tricky, so pay attention. I'm going to put it up to the hole with the back side showing. And I'm going to mark it just inside the lines of where the hole is. Top and bottom. Then I'm going to hold it up side to side, and I'm going to mark inside the hole. And again, we're marking well inside of where the hole is. So why am I doing that? Well, we are going to connect these lines to one another, and then we're going to cut them with the razor knife, and we're going to break out the back of the sheetrock but leave the paper in the front intact. That way you don't need mesh tape or paper tape. The sheetrock will act as its own tape. Okay, so I just used the back side of my keyhole saw as a straight edge and drew the lines. Then I scored it with my knife, and now I'm going to very carefully crack these off and peel it away from the paper. Leave the paper stuck to the middle piece. Okay, let's see how this fits. All right, we got fittage, but here's where I take things a step further than most people. I'll put this in place, and you can either go with your razor knife and go through the patch and the sheetrock, or you can just go around the patch, or you could trace it with a pencil and then cut it out later. Whatever works best for you. Normally I cut through them both because then it has no choice but to fit perfect no matter what every time. But I think this time I'm just going to hold it in place, score the wall, and again, it's not rocket science, you just got to get close. I mean, you're going to be spackling this. take this away. Now very carefully peel the paper out. What's going to happen is when you finish this, it's going to be the same thickness as the wall because it's the same paper. It won't be sticking out, and you won't have to do all the fancy feathering to try to make it blend. Well, you get the point. You don't have to watch this and be bored to death. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is butter this. Little dab will do you. And now, put this in place. Get a nice clean knife. And I'm going to pin it in one corner and I'm going to embed it. Now, I'll go the other way. I'll get this corner that I had my finger on. Clean off this excess. And I guess I'll put a little layer over the top for good measure. All right. Do the catty corner trick. And leave that to dry. Now, just like any other spackle job, for me, I will come back to this later. Depending on if it feels lumpy or bumpy, I might give it a quick sanding or a wet sand with a damp old washcloth. By damp, I mean pretty wet, just not dripping, but pretty wet. I don't really like to wet sand because sometimes when you have a hump or a bump, what you end up with is a smooth bump, whereas sanding it makes it flat. But for a little job, or in a job in a precarious place where you don't want to make a big, dirty, dusty mess, there's a time and a place for wet sanding, I'd say. And this might be one of those times and places. Use your judgment, use your preference. But yeah, that's the first coat. Let that dry thoroughly. It'll get a second coat and a third coat, and then sand it and paint it. That's it. See you next time.